So this is everything you need in step 13 from parts bag C. So we've got motor housing and covers, gears, bearings, ball ends, and we've got the screws and the motor itself. Just going to see if these screws actually match up with the diagram and to scale on the drawings. The bags are actually labelled as the screw type, and these numbers, the OHSW01505 for example, actually match up with the drawing which you actually need, what screw you need into what position. But I'm going to see if the actual screws are actually to scale on the drawing as well, so just bear with me on that. So if I just remove one of the screws from the OHSW01505 bag, and then let's see if it matches up to scale on the drawing itself. So just going to offer that to there. And in all fairness to it, it's kind of close to the drawing. It's kind of to scale, if you can see that. So it's close, but I think they cover themselves by pointing out in the drawing the actual screw number that you need. So it's very close, it's very good. So we're going to start by doing this part first. So we've got the motor, we've got this part number 2, OHPC35202. We've got a couple of OHSW11603 screws, which we need to screw this to the motor mounting. And then we'll do the next bit, which is the gears with the little grub screw, the bearings, and then the cap, which is here. And then the next step will be this section here, where we then put the ball ends into the into this housing on top that finishes off the motor mounting. Just paying attention to the motor mounting. I don't know if you can see on the drawing there. You can see the drawing, it's got a motor gear at the bottom and a motor gear at the top, and looks like a gap. So just looking that onto here, you can see this gap here. This gear is relevant to this pictorial, so that lines up there. And before I put this into here, I'm going to put some grease through here. So I'm just going to do that now, just so the gears are nice and greased too. And then we'll screw that together and I'll show you how we do. So grease that, as you can see, so that when that starts to move, the grease will distribute around the grease over the gears there. So it's a case of making sure this is the right orientation and making sure I've got this motor orientated correct as well. Popping that into the motor housing. So we're just going to, it's a nice tight snug fit, so we need to make sure we go in there nice and level, like so, and make sure that pushes all the way. I think that's all the way home, just checking that now. Yep. And then with a couple of screws, the OHSW11603s, a couple of screws there. Screw those through, so just pop those on the end of my little screwdriver that I have. There we go. And pop those through. So I've gently moved the flat of the motor around to the top, so that when the pinion gear goes on, I can get to the grub screw. I am going to pop a little bit of thread lock onto the hole for the grub screw, so that that just locks in place on that nice flat area. We're moving the gearbox there because it's very geared down quite a lot. Just gently move that gears around. Use a little pair of pliers just to move the gear around, but do it very, very gently and very carefully so you don't damage any gears. So I'm going to pop a little bit of thread lock. So the next stage is to put the bearings into their carrier holders. So this is the small bearing. So this is the end cap. This is the motor mount. Pop the bearing in. Make sure that sits home, which it does. Then we've got this gear here. And again, making sure that the holes here face upwards, as in the drawing. That now sits into the motor. Just engages. I'm just moving that so it engages. So as you can see now in the motor, should hopefully the camera picks that out. Should engage nicely. What I might quickly do before we do that, I might just pop a small amount of grease here and here on the bearing. Just a small amount of grease. Pop that along there. So again, make sure the hole's up. A bit too much on there, just taking a little bit off. So again, push that through. There we go. Make sure those holes are up. That's it. So we've got the bearing in here, and we've got the bearing on that side with the gear in the middle. Just bring the casing together. And I'm going to do before I put the casing together, again, just put enough grease on the gears, and then what will happen is when we start using the model, that grease will go around the teeth. Okay. Like so. And a little touch. The bearing, just want a little bit in the bearing, just put it in the bottom of the bearing. I say when we start using it, it will move itself around, and then on goes the case, like so, and then we screw the case together with these OH32A03 screws. So just popping those in there. And I normally just sort of put them all into place first. Like so. Can use the screwdriver that come with the kit. It's a smaller black handled screwdriver, but it just so happens that this is a positive, I think it's a 1.5 millimeter. Believe it or not, this is when I changed a screen on one of my old iPhones. I changed the screen that was cracked, and I kept the screwdriver and the little tools that came with that, and believe it or not, that's turned out to be perfect fit for this little model, so come in handy. So that's that screw, and the last screw. Actually, I find it's better to pop the screw onto the screwdriver head and then bring that to the model, and then there we are. That's now screw those through. So now that they're all four in there, I'm just going to bring them down, and I tend to, as a creature of habit, I tend to bring them across, sort of across opposite diagonals, opposite, so it brings the casing square. So again, you don't have to go too mad with these screws, just nip them with your fingers, just tight, like so. I think that's about it. And they're nice and tight, nipped up. So there you have. That's there. The motor and then the gears are inside, and the next step will be when we put the other top on. So now this is the next step. Going to pop the lid on the grease there, my little fingers, and place these ball ends as per the drawing. So this is where I'm going to use my hex driver that I purchased for the kit, and you've got 8 ball ends which go into the relevant ports on here. So on the front of this, they go on these 2 inside, and on here they go on each side of this, and then on the other side the ball ends matching. So there's 2, 2, 2 and 2. So we'll pop those in. Let's get those out here. So again, I'm picking them out carefully with a pair of tweezers, believe it or not, which is quite easy. Again, these tweezers came with that same mobile phone repair kit for one of our mobile phones that needed a screen. A little bit handy like that. Having done some electronics in the past, so I kind of happy with that. So we've got 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So just pop this ball joint into this location here. It just seems, I think we've got a defect. I remember seeing on the internet other people having trouble where they screw one of the ball joints onto this plate and it cracks. So what I've done is I've managed to pop the ball joint in, and I've just put a little bit of super glue just to hold that plastic section there, and that should hold it in nicely, and hopefully that should be enough to hold it. So it's perhaps a little bit of a defect there where the moulding of the plastic, and yeah, I think that's where it is. So we'll carry on while that glue still goes, because we're now doing the top ones as per the drawing, so either side of the top. So again, pop in the little ball joint into the hole on the side, and I just sort of back a quarter of a turn and then feed it through, and then yeah, there we go. And all I do is I'll just come back a couple of bits as I go, just so the threads can make. There we go, and that's nipped. Same again. So cutting your own threads in effect into the little plastic. So yeah, there we are. So again, wind that in, come back a couple, wind that in, and that's normally enough to help the thread. Put that into the end. This is that wonderful little hex driver that I purchased as recommended. So pop that in there and pop that in there. There we go. And again, just finger tight them. So I'm going to leave that half an hour or so. Make sure it's fully glued. Just popping. The super glue I have is quite a strong industrial strength super glue, so it should be fine. It looks to me like it's got on hold, so it should be okay. So yeah, so that's that section there, and we fasten this section onto the top of the motor, and we use a couple of AHW 1505s, AHSW 1505s. So it's 2 of those, and again they're in the bag. I think they are to scale on the drawing, but I take them out of the bag as and when I need to. So my nice tweezers, pop those in there, and just before I seal that up, just pop a little bit more grease now on top. There's enough, there should be enough in there. This is quite a nice marine, it's a waterproof, watertight, water resistant type grease. So that top now goes on top of there, and it should fit. There we go, on the top nicely, and a trusty screwdriver, same process, pop the head and screw that into the top. Okay, it's bitten nicely. Put the other one in at the same time. There we go. And again, just finger tight. You don't have to go mad. Remember, these are tiny screws. There we go. You can't feel that moving, and it's off the top, so there you are. So that's step 13 done. Well, out of bag C. And yeah, perfect. Thank you. And we're on to the next step.